freezing rain, a ski lift full of strangers, and a camera falling into the abyss. That is where our story fractures into two halves, adrenaline and ambition. Nick Woodman himself was not a graduate of a giant corporation. He was a surfer, a young entrepreneur with a camera strapped to his wrist and a stubborn belief that people wanted to film their lives from the front row. In 2002 AD, the company that would become GoPro began as a simple idea: make cameras durable, affordable, and hands-free. This is not a tale of overnight charity or Silicon Valley myth-making. It is a human story about relentless iteration, about a single product idea turning into a culture-defining brand, and then about how that same identity became a constraint. Over the next 10 chapters, we follow a narrative of breakthroughs, hubris, and hard pivots. We will meet risk-taking engineers, a CEO who bet everything on lifestyle, and a market that transformed faster than anyone expected. By the end, the question won't be simply what happened to GoPro. It will be what their rise and stumble teach founders about focus in a world where phones keep getting smarter. Nick Woodman founded the company in 2002 AD. He returned from surfing trips with one persistent gripe: nobody made a durable, wearable camera that captured point-of-view footage. The earliest products were simple mounts and straps for 35mm film cameras. These accessories were practical, cheap to produce, and resonated with outdoor enthusiasts. Woodman sold his first units at surf shops and trade shows, iterating the design based on real feedback. By 2006 AD, the company shifted into digital with the first consumer-focused action cameras branded under the GoPro name. The technical challenge was straightforward in concept, but brutally difficult in execution: squeeze fit, durability, and stabilization into a tiny waterproof shell. Engineers learned through trial and error, and marketing learned from user footage that was raw, thrilling, and shareable. From these humble experiments, the company formed a culture: rapid prototyping, community-driven marketing, and a refusal to accept heavy, fragile camera rigs. This chapter closes with a simple fact: GoPro's origins were not in a fancy lab. They were in garages, on beaches, and on the backs of athletes who cared more about the experience than the equipment. The breakthrough was not a marketing memo. It was a montage of user-shot footage that felt alive, raw, and cinematic. GoPro's early digital hero cameras turned point-of-view clips into shareable stories. By 2010 AD, action clips of surfing, skydiving, and skateboard tricks flooded online platforms. GoPro did something almost magical. It handed cameras to amateurs and produced content that looked professional. The technical leaps were iterative: better sensors, improved housings, and incremental image stabilization. But the real innovation was social. GoPro fostered a community that created viral loops. Users filmed, they shared, others wanted the same perspective. Sales grew rapidly, and the brand moved from a niche to a lifestyle icon. The product became shorthand for adventure camera, and the little waterproof box became a badge. As money and attention arrived, the company learned to scale manufacturing and global distribution, while protecting a brand built on authenticity. Yet the same dependence on hardware sales planted a future problem: a brand whose halo rested on a device that could eventually be imitated or replaced.
Between 2010 AD and 2014 AD, GoPro's ascent felt inevitable. Retail shelves filled with compact hero cameras, and GoPro became a recognizable logo on helmets and equipment. In 2014 AD, the company went public, listing on a major exchange and marking a peak of investor optimism. The IPO amplified expectations. Growth needed to keep accelerating, and product cycles shortened. For a while, the formula worked. New hero models appeared with better resolution, waterproofing, and editing software that made content creation accessible to millions. Marketing budgets ballooned and brand partnerships multiplied. But signaling matters. Public markets demand not just great products, but predictable revenue curves. Hardware makes that predictability hard. Inventories, component costs, and the rhythm of product upgrades introduced financial noise that analysts scrutinized. The public phase intensified scrutiny, and every product misstep would now play in conference calls. In short order, GoPro was no longer just a scrappy startup. It was a public company balancing community ethos with quarterly scrutiny. Success can breed bold bets, and few bets were bolder than GoPro's venture into drones and rapid product expansion. In 2016 AD, the company launched a consumer drone intended to expand GoPro's storytelling remit. Early units suffered from stability issues that triggered a high-profile recall. The drone failure was more than a product defect. It exposed how quickly diversification can undermine core strengths. At the same time, smartphone cameras were improving fast, and cheaper action cameras from other manufacturers flooded the market.
GoPro's product cadence became a double-edged sword. Constant releases meant better specs, but also greater inventory risk and thinner margins. Operationally, the company faced inventory gluts, supply chain pressure, and the need to discount aggressively. Leadership choices reflected the pressure: large marketing spends, rapid hiring, and an impulse to be everything to everyone. When sales slowed, GoPro executed rounds of restructuring and workforce reductions to conserve cash. These years taught a blunt lesson: iconic hardware brands can be vulnerable the moment the device they sell becomes functionally redundant.
After the shock of product recalls and slowing sales, GoPro faced a choice: double down on fragile hardware or build recurring value. The company chose both, but leaned heavily into software and services. Over the late 2010s AD, GoPro invested in editing apps, cloud backups, and a subscription offering that bundled software features with cloud storage and camera protection. This shift aimed to convert one-time buyers into recurring customers. Technically, it required building reliable mobile apps and cloud pipelines, skills far from making a waterproof case. Culturally, it meant retraining teams to think about retention and lifetime value rather than only unit sales. The pivot was not instantaneous. It involved product simplification, renewed focus on core hero cameras, and an emphasis on content distribution and partnerships. Slowly, the company reduced inventory volatility and opened a steadier revenue stream. The strategic lesson was pragmatic. In a sea of imitation, recurring services tether customers to a brand more tightly than a product ever can. The gamble was to turn GoPro from a camera maker into a storytelling platform.
Reinvention rarely happens overnight. Through the early 2020s AD, GoPro refined its cameras, leaned into flagship hero models, and continued to grow its software and subscription base. Product designs became more modular, battery life improved, and stabilization technology matured, delivering footage that kept the brand relevant to creators. The company also doubled down on direct-to-consumer channels and licensed uses of its vast library of user-generated content. Financially, these moves reduced reliance on cyclical retail channels and helped steady revenues. Yet GoPro never reclaimed the wild valuation days of the IPO. What it did recover was a sustainable niche, a tight community of enthusiasts and professionals who still needed the specific durability and mounting versatility only dedicated action cameras provide. The brand's resilience lay in authenticity, in the footage that users still chose GoPro to capture. Today, GoPro stands as a smaller, more focused company, pragmatic about product cycles and careful with capital. The story is not a tragedy. It is a recalibration born from market humility. GoPro's arc offers a concentrated lesson about brand, product, and the limits of expansion. The company proved that a single, well-executed product can create a cultural movement. It also demonstrated how fast a hardware franchise can erode when the underlying problem it solves becomes embedded in smartphones or commoditized by competitors. The human story is essential. Nick Woodman's willingness to iterate, take public risk, and stand by community-driven marketing built a durable identity. The error was predictable in hindsight. Multiply bets too quickly, and you risk losing the thing that made you special. The business lesson is pragmatic. Prioritize recurring revenue when the product market tightens. Treat diversification as a measured expansion, not a salvation strategy. Philosophically, GoPro's legacy is twofold. It accelerated a new visual language, the first-person shot, and it reminded founders that culture can be both an asset and a constraint. In the end, the action camera king fell from its peak but left behind a mode of storytelling millions adopted. That is a kind of permanence that balance sheets cannot fully capture.
I hope this deep dive gave you a new perspective on the strategies and the relentless mindset behind these global icons. If you enjoy deconstructing business empires and tech legends in this tech archive style, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. That way, you will never miss a new blueprint of history. For those of you ready to explore more boardroom coups and technological breakthroughs, I have handpicked 2 videos for you right here on the screen. Click one to keep watching. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.